Welcome to Automation Ladies, the only podcast we know of where girls talk about industrial automation. This is season 7. It's 2026, and the band is back together. All of us are here. I am your host, Nikki Gonzales, Director of Business Development at WinTech USA and co-host of the conference OT Skatacon, which is going to be in its 3rd year this year, as well as co-founder of Automation Ladies with my co-host here, Ali G, or Alicia Gilpin. And then Courtney has joined our roster as well. She's been around for a couple seasons, so you guys should probably know her. But for those of you that may be first-time listeners or don't know us, I neglect this sometimes, we should introduce ourselves. So Ali, why don't you tell everyone hi and who you are?
I'm Ali G. I'm co-host of Automation Ladies and co-founder of OT Skatacon, which is happening on July 22nd through 24th this year. I also am the CEO of Process and Controls Engineering LLC, my own engineering firm. I'm also co-founder of Kids PLC Kits, a nonprofit to help new talent find mechatronics as a career.
Super cool. So Ali is a chemical engineer turned controls engineer, right? And that she kind of speaks to that controls engineering realm of the industrial automation industry. And then we have Courtney Fernandez, our robotics expert. Courtney has a new role this year, working on some new stuff. Courtney, you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Still Courtney Fernandez and still involved with Fast One Solutions, although that's mostly my husband, Alberto Fernandez, now. I am with Relativity Space now, and I get to work on like really cool stuff that I'm mostly not allowed to talk about. But it is robotic, and it's just bigger robots than I have done in the past. So it's been a lot of fun for me for like the last 6 months. But if you've noticed me being distinctly absent from social media, I've been head down kind of trying to fit into this new role, and it's been violently changing over at Relativity Space because we're going to launch a rocket in December. So things are going a little nuts here in Long Beach.
Very, very, very cool. So Courtney's history involves going from being an embedded electrical engineer, right, to getting her master's in robotics and going into industrial automation, taking some time being an integrator. And so she's got like a really varied experience that worked as a trainer for cobots for a while as well. So we're really lucky to have her. And we're lucky that she's still available to do the show with us, even with all this craziness and building rockets and robots and stuff. So thank you, Courtney. Courtney's based in Southern California. I'm based in Houston, Texas. And Ali is now based in Louisiana. Can you, somewhere around Lafayette, right? Is that correct,
South of Lafayette.
Okay, cool. So I think that concludes the introduction of the host this time. And we'd love to welcome our first guest of this season to the show, one of our industry favorites, someone that we, I think, literally and figuratively in lots of ways sometimes call mom. Cathy, Rinne, welcome to Automation Ladies.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's always great to see my girls.
We are very glad to have you here. It, I think, is a comfort to us for the first episode of this season as we're figuring out some new stuff, to have somebody that we're very comfortable with. And great to catch up. And I think also we haven't had you solo on the show before. Am I right to say that you and Lauren have come on in the past when we were at, I think, Automate? And so I think we still have some room to, kind of hear, particularly your story, and then catch up on all the things you're doing. So we were all about AI and what we're using AI for and all that good stuff. So I want to get into that.
My career's not nearly as glamorous as you guys. I co-founded FlexLine 42 years ago with my husband and his parents. So I've been doing this for a long time. I've been president of the company since 1999. So literally raised my daughter, Lauren. She's now 40 with 40 years of experience. She doesn't like me to throw that number out there, but she's not here to kick me or give me a glaring look. So we've been doing this for a while, and I really don't know what to say. That every year is a challenge, and there's always something on the bingo card that I didn't anticipate. And
Yeah.
so it's it's a position that's required a lot of growth.
So, can you tell us, for those that don't know, I know a lot of people in our ecosystem, in our audience, they know you, they know FlexLine Automation, but for somebody that doesn't know, what does FlexLine do? And
Okay.
what kind of size company and where are you located?
Well, we are a small family owned company. We're woman owned, actually, and we're located in Southern Illinois, actually closer to St. Louis than Chicago. A lot of people think Illinois, I'll think
Yep.
we're northern for some reason. So we're in the very southern end. Um, FlexLine began all of those years ago as a conveyor integrator. And probably about 15 years or so ago, I started to recognize that the market was shifting and the role of conveyance was changing. And I knew that we were going to have to do something else if we were going to remain relevant.
Mhm.
And so we got into robotics integration at that time. And we've since then have our own patented box erector, robotic box erector, which is a pretty popular item. And we're working on a gluing mechanism for that. So it won't I'll only do taping of boxes, it'll be able to glue some boxes. So, I mean, the biggest part of my job is trying to think of ways to keep us relevant. That's usually what I get up thinking about, what I go to bed thinking about.
Yeah, yeah. So the role of president,
Yeah.
for people that aren't really in business, at least for me, it took me some time to realize, like, what's the difference between the CEO and the owner and the president and the chairman, and larger companies have a lot more levels to things. How would you describe your sort of journey into the role of president, and what do you do as a president of a company?
Well, I think you're right. Larger companies have a lot of layers, and FlexLine is not a layer cake. We're kind of that sheet cake that your grandma bakes you for your birthday, and it's pretty much the same flavor from the top to the bottom. There's not a whole lot of icing, there's not a whole lot of fluff in between, and um, I honestly, I think that when the company started, my father-in-law and my husband were primarily the engineers of the company, and so basically I did everything that they didn't have time or want to do. So I was packing up boxes, I was turning wrenches. They would go out and sell a project, and then I would be building it in our shop and helping with all of that, managing the inventory, and just from that moved into bookkeeping. And so I was doing all of our billing and all of our ordering and everything. So basically I just did every role that nobody else wanted. And I think that's how I wound up to be the president. I think that, if you ask my husband this question, he'll tell you it's because I'm naturally bossy, but I don't know that really has a whole lot to do with it. But anyway, I have more of the organizational, my background is in business management. So I had more of the business and the organizational skills than either of them. And my mother-in-law, her role was basically to take care of Lauren. So that was her contribution to the company. She
That's a
baked
good
that.
one. That's
Yeah,
it was a working mom of kids, like having someone taking care of your kids.
Right. Yeah. And the beautiful thing about that was she had her own office here. Lauren was here on site. Lauren was able to travel with us. So when you just start a business, it requires so much time and so much energy. And there were times that, I wouldn't, see my husband, we'd wave at each other in the airport, as he was going to his gate and I was coming back for mine. And it was just that time consuming. So having her here and having her be able to take care of Lauren and still having me feel like I was a part of Lauren's life, I think was instrumental. And that contribution often gets overlooked.
Right. So the role of president, as I understand it, is kind of the person that is the backbone of the operations, right? You know the day to day. You are in charge of kind of what happens, what runs.
Basically, I you got to consider me more like the captain of the ship.
Okay.
I'm mapping out where we're sailing, what ports we're going to stop at, and it's really my team though that make the ship move and do all of the things. I'm more the thoughts behind it,
Mhm.
and make a lot of suggestions that when you're in a family company don't always get followed. So I feel like I have an atypical presidential role because sometimes I can be vetoed instead
But
of
also
the other way around.
under the CEO setting direction also, right?
Yeah. So, I am the majority shareholder of the company, but sometimes that's used as a weapon against me and not not, not anything. But it's fun. It's fun in a small company. It's fun that I have such a great team that I can count on, that really are trying to listen and work together with me and Lauren, because Lauren is basically next in line for the throne, right? So a lot of what I do these days is trying to, one, get the business to the point where I can pass it off to her and it not be quite as crazy for her to pick up and take forward as it was when I did. I became president when my husband's dad retired. And so he decided to leave the company, and it left this big hole. And there was nobody else in the organization that had really worked in every avenue. My husband is excellent. I mean, best problem solver, engineer, crazy science guy, terrible businessman. Just terrible. So it really was a natural thing for me to step into that role. And then, I try to use it more to educate and then to bring everybody else along. So, it's not like a dictatorship where I sit in my office and I say, okay, this is the policy and everybody's going to follow it. In a small company, it doesn't work that way. Everybody has to buy in. I have to do a lot of listening. I have to do a lot of sales, to my own team. So it's a unique business model to work so closely with your husband and your child's spouse. And my brother-in-law works here also. So, it makes for some very tense holidays sometimes. And, sometimes at Christmas dinner, we have to tell each other, hey, this is our day off, stop talking about work. So it's challenging, but it's a role that I think I am naturally inclined to do. Although, I mean, I wake up a lot of days and I think that there is in no way that I'm prepared or capable to make some of the decisions that I make. So, sometimes I struggle with that because I have to teach myself a lot as I go and learn as I go, because, things are a lot different now than they were 40 years ago. So the world is changing, business is changing. And if you refuse to evolve with it, you're just going to go by the wayside. So a lot of what I do is trying to learn every day so that I can help bring that information to the rest of my team and give them resources so that they can do what they need to do.
Wonderful. I guess there's a real life moment here. In the earlier seasons, we used to have cats come into the show sometimes. We may still have that on Allie's side. I don't know. I have a blind dog over here
Aww.
that somehow always needs to go out as soon as I start recording. So I'm going to head out here and take my blind dog outside and let Allie and Courtney get a word in.
What's something that you've learned recently, Cathy, that's that you brought back to your team that you feel was actually, like, I don't want to say monumental, but like, what's the biggest thing that you've brought back in the last couple of years that you think's helped your team like run with it?
I know we were talking a little earlier about AI and how I think it's really important to, especially as a small business, learn how you're going to leverage that technology within your organization. And, we're looking at using it to help a lot more with maybe automating drawings and quoting and engineering, and freeing up my engineering team from a lot of the mundane tasks and some of the things that can be easily automated, using an AI agent for that. And, I think when it was a couple of years ago at Automate, I think I saw a robot, and it was the one that you guys probably saw too, that you could talk to it and she was writing her own code, and you would talk to her like
Neura.
Yeah, Neura, I think it was Neuro Robotics.
Neura, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I came back to the team and I'm like, okay, guys, this is where we're going as an industry. This is where everything is going. And they laughed in my face, right? My engineers were like, that's 10 years away. That's just for the show. Nothing like that is ever going to happen. You're crazy. That's way down the road. And I was like, no, I really don't think it is. I think that this technology is just growing and expanding exponentially. And I take every opportunity that I can to tell them I told you so. Because now AI is embedded in pretty much everything you do. You can't have an app on your phone that doesn't have AI included. Um, so, the I think it's like the next big frontier. And I know it's a buzzword and people get tired of hearing about it, but I think in a small company like ours, what I'm doing is trying to figure out, how can we incorporate AI into our workflow to make it easier for the team and to make a better experience for the customer.
How do you think your team feels about using it so far? Is it like a
Um,
productivity booster, or do they just hate you for like browbeating them with it?
well, it's kind of a mixed bag because my team spans several generations. I've got the boomers. I've got my older millennial. I've got some Gen Z, and um, you would really, I guess, see the most hesitancy coming surprisingly not from my boomer, but from my older millennials who are like, oh, I don't know, we like to do things our way and this way and that way. And of course, the young kids, they're very adaptive. They're like, sure, I think that's a great idea. And, we should try working on it. And so it's pretty much a mixed bag. I won't say that everybody is bought in because there's still a lot of fear. There's still a lot of skepticism, but I feel like, it's happening whether we want it to or not. You can bury your head in your sand all you want, but it's still going to happen. And if you don't find ways to incorporate that and to make those changes, somebody else is going to. And so, especially in the automation industry, I think it's very important for us to live what we do. And that's, if we're not automating our own internal processes, are we really an automation company? But it's a mixed bag. I'm
Good
getting
point.
some pushback and some that are just like, well, I'm going to wait and see, what you come up with and how it works. And, we'll see from there. But we're also deploying a new ERP system right now. So they already hate me. So
The ERP is a 4-letter word, right?
yeah, I know, right. So yeah, this was a big adjustment, and it's not quite doing everything the way we wanted or thought that it should. And so I'm already not the most popular person in the building. And when I bring them the idea of more technology, they're just kind of like, oh, I don't know about you.
How many people work for FlexLine?
15.
Beautiful.
All right.
So
Is
we're
it
just a
mostly
small
like
company in a
engineering?
coal shed in the middle of a cornfield here in Southern Illinois. Actually, we have 3 facilities, but it's just a small handful of us.
I've seen this meme popping up a lot with people who work in tech. Like the longer you're in tech, the more you just want to throw away like all of your tech. And when you said being in the middle of a cornfield in Illinois, I was just kind of like, yes, that sounds amazing.
It is nice. It is nice. And I also live on a 320-acre farm, so my day is crazy before I ever get here. So, I'm looking for ways to automate a lot of those tasks too. And that's one of the things that I point out. Being from a rural area a lot, we get a lot of pushback, and then I'm like, yeah, but the farmer down the road, he hasn't drove his own tractor for years. He's used auto steer. So come on, guys, really?
I think some of the coolest innovation in terms of automation has come from farmers,
Yeah,
to be honest.
absolutely.
And like people who don't have, engineering degrees in the middle of rural areas who are like, I have no support. I can't call the electric company. Nobody's coming to fix anything for me. Like those people are geniuses and they find
Yeah.
ways to automate things that blow my mind.
It requires a lot of ingenuity to be a farmer.
Yeah.
And, I think that part of, I was born and raised on a farm, have lived on a farm my entire life. So I think a lot of that ingenuity, problem solving skills, willingness to try new things, I think was born out of that upbringing, because as a farmer, you have to be able to solve your own problems. You can't always go to town and get a part. Sometimes you got to make your own, and so it has made us have a lot more ingenuity, I think.
So Allie and I both come from dairy farming backgrounds or dairy backgrounds. Although, yeah, Allie, I don't know, your grandparents did they do the farming or they just made the butter in the mill?
They made the butter.
Yeah, okay. So I come from two different sides. One of them is dairy farmers. The other side, my grandpa worked in the dairy and made the butter. So similar to Allie's grandpa. And then we have this friend, Vinny Endres, who is a dairy farmer turned controls engineer, who's one of our speakers at OT SCADACon. He talks about ag automation. And yeah, I think it opens, like a lot of people are surprised at the ingenuity and, some of the things that they automate in farming and then some of the things that they don't, that like industry folks would think are obvious.
Yeah.
But obviously the drivers are very different on a farm than they are in a factory, I would assume.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'm impressed with the amount of automation that takes place in dairy and that has taken place. The dairy farm of my childhood is completely gone now, and it's really cool. I watch a lot of videos and reels and things, and I see a lot of the tech that they're doing, and it's amazing. And there's this stereotype that, farmers are just, hayseeds, dumb farmers, but they're some of the brightest individuals you will ever meet,
Oh, absolutely.
and innovative. And what they're doing as far as automating the milking process and all of that is really phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I would love to visit more. I've only been to close to my hometown in Iceland. There is a dairy farm that has opened a cafe. And so they have a upstairs portion that overlooks the dairy barn. And so as you eat and drink there, you can actually see the cows and you can see them going to get their massage whenever they want to. They can go get milked whenever they want to. They can.
Yeah, it's fully automated.
Automated for them, but at their leisure. Like they.
Yeah.
And I think it's a super cool thing to be able to use automation to make the whole operation like more humane and better for the cows. And then for the consumer, like that's also really great to know and then to see and then to be able to go there and like see where your milk is coming from and that sort of stuff. And I think, yeah, my grandpa, back when he was on a dairy farm, actually he built his own hydroelectric dam power station because there isn't always electricity or different things that you need, especially at the time, like way back then. And so they just, take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that was pretty much how I was raised. I mean, if there was a problem, you just solved it and you looked around and you used what you had at hand. And, I think I bring a lot of that to FlexLine. I know my husband does as well, because, when we're not here, we're farming together, and we don't do row crops anymore. We've leased our row crop land because that was just way too much, but we still have cattle and we still have, make some hay and stuff like that. And we'll help the farmer out that leases our acreage for row crop and stuff. So, I get to play in it enough just to kind of keep me interested and satisfied without having the full-time responsibility of that. Because, that's a really tough career.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know if people who thinks that farmers are raking it in hand over fist, other than maybe the big corporate, farm operations, which I wouldn't call farmers necessarily in the same way that like a family farm is, right? But volatility, there's been a lot of craziness going on in.
Well, yeah. I mean, nobody had tariff on their bingo card, right? So, and when you look at the way that it affects agriculture, their input costs have risen exponentially as well. Kind of the same as, ours in my field. I'm paying a lot more. I'm seeing anywhere from 10 to 25% increases in raw materials. And, so that really, I think, has complicated things for not just agriculture, but for all business, small business especially. since we don't often have the margins to be able to absorb that kind of a hit. 2025 was a really interesting year to be a business owner and to be a farmer and to be, I think, pretty much plug anything into that sentence. It was an interesting year. Um, it was definitely trying. I wasn't really prepared for that. It's been, again, one of those, well, here we are, going to have to figure something out right away kind of experiences. So, but we're seeing it on the farm end as well. Cattle prices are up, then corn is down, and it's just it's always something.
I got a question. What made you study business?
Well, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and that's still a big hobby of mine. I read a lot of books on veterinary medicine and things like that. It just wound up that it's like, what can I do that I'm going to get a return on my investment, basically. And it was interesting because my generation, when we went to school, guidance counselors were like, well, you can be a nurse or a teacher, or you could be a homemaker, or nobody ever really said anything about having an opportunity in STEM, right? So I think that's probably what kept me on the business side of things, is because I didn't have anybody to guide me in that direction. I mean, obviously, you don't work in automation for 42 years without having some aptitude, some mechanical aptitude. And as I said, I did a lot of the building, quoting. I mean, basically every element of the company I've been involved in. So that's how I ended up in business. It was like, hey, you want to be a teacher? You want to be a secretary? What do you want to do? And, I didn't really want to be a secretary. If I'm going to be in business, I, thought I wanted to do a little more than that. So not to say that, because secretaries, I think, one of the most critical roles in any company. So, I'm not trying to belittle any role at all, because especially in a small business, every role is super important. And I would never say that just a secretary, because it's like, I've got an administrative assistant that I don't know what I would do without. So
yeah, I'm there right now. Like we're in the process of finding me one, because I didn't, there was a period in my career where I didn't respect executives needing that type of help, because I think my life was simple enough that I could juggle it all and I could manage it. And I worked for a manager that also could.
But just taking every phone call yourself. I mean, I get a million phone calls a day, because everybody will get my number and be like, oh my God, I've got the president's number. I want them to buy my whatever. And yeah. I'm like, I'm the last person you need to call for that. I am where your sales pitches come to die, guys, because I buy coffee and toilet paper. Those are the two things that I have a really strong opinion on, and where I really will throw down my authority. It's like, if we don't have the Charmin and we don't, somebody's going to be in trouble. So it's like, don't bring me the store brand stuff. I don't want the 2-ply. I want, so unless you're selling Charmin or really good coffee, I'm probably not who you need to talk to. And so what I love is that, they can redirect those calls to where, they'd be better off, and save my time, save their time, because I am not it. I might be at the head of this ship, but I don't tell everybody what to buy. I mean, I expect that, they know what they need and they're making those purchases, and and I don't work for your firm. So, don't expect me to pass your sales pitch along to my team, unless I'm going to get a commission. I don't work for you. I'm not a salesperson for you.
Well, there's this lovely gradual onset of like experience and age. And I don't think they necessarily have to go together. I know young people with a lot of experience, but, not the smartest engineer anymore. I don't know that I ever was, honestly, but I can tell other younger, smarter engineers like, oh, that, and that need to be done. But if you want me to do that math, prepare for it to be wrong. Or like, I'm not afraid to be like wrong or an a-hole anymore. Like, I'm okay with you not liking me. which, is a weird thing to cross into. But like, that sounds like everything you're saying, where you're like, I know what has to happen, but I'm not necessarily the best person to be doing the actual things.
Yeah, my ship
Anymore.
has sailed. I'm not the actual person who should be doing things, I mean, I can still run airline and I can still do all of that stuff, but I don't get up and down as easily as I once did, and I think that the hardest part for me was when we started the company and I was doing almost everything myself. I was very passionate about things being done a certain way, my way. And one of the hardest things that I've had to learn in taking this role was to let people express themselves in the way they go about doing things. And it doesn't always have to be exactly my way. And we can still get to the same point. And I can be a little more chill about it. And so, having this position has required a level of maturity that I didn't think I was ever going to get. And sometimes still don't feel like I have, because I want to be like, no, I'll just do it myself,
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get that.
This episode is brought to you by WinTech USA, or WineTech as you might know them. And yes, I know what you're thinking, I work there. But that's exactly why I wanted to talk about them. WinTech has been in the HMI business for over 30 years. And what keeps me excited about this company is that they build hardware that actually holds up in the real world. On the plant floor, in data centers, and packaging lines that never stop running, there's millions of them installed all over the world, and they've been running for decades. These HMIs are paired with innovative flexible software that is completely free. It supports over 425 different protocol drivers natively, which means no middleware, no recurring license fees, just a device that connects and works. And with over 2 million HMIs manufactured every year, if you're an OEM, panel builder, or anyone who needs secure orders in high volumes, you can count on them to deliver. Check them out at wintechusa.com. That's WEINTEKUSA.com.
I feel like I'm mature enough to say yes and no to things and let other people do stuff now, but I don't know when I'm supposed to get to the level of maturity that I'm supposed to be at in my 40s. Today I learned of a product line whose abbreviation is ED, and I laughed for like 5 minutes on the meeting. I was camera off, but I don't know where the level of maturity is supposed to happen,
Okay, well, I mean, it's like nobody notices all the Minion toys behind me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We gotta hang on to that childish part of us.
Level of maturity. I'm basically a 12-year-old. I still laugh at fart jokes. I mean, I don't know. I don't think you ever want to lose your sense of youth, though. I mean, if you're not having fun in what you're doing it wrong. I mean, when you have a career that spans 42 years, if you don't enjoy it, I mean, come on, so I try to have fun. Lauren gets a little aggravated at me because I'm kind of like herding a cat, and Allie will know exactly how that is. It's kind of hard to keep me focused sometimes because, I'm playful like that, I guess.
I think that also
like core memory for me watching you run around recording Lauren carrying stuff into and out of an exhibitor booth for TikTok.
Yeah.
It was just like that. Like she was annoyed. Like, no, don't help me carry the stuff. Please make your TikTok. But it was so amazing to watch you guys interact. Definitely core memory.
Well, if she would have done TikTok, I wouldn't have had to. So, that was on her. I would have been the one carrying in the stuff, right? Hey, that was all her.
So are you finding
that
your TikTok presence? So let's talk about that for a minute. Your nickname on TikTok, and I guess it also on LinkedIn, the moniker, the Conveyor Cougar, clearly conveys that you're of the older generation than maybe the rest of the folks that are jumping on the trends of TikTok and things like that. And yeah, I feel you with like us millennials kind of being stuck in the middle because now we're all of a sudden in this like huge place of responsibility. So we can't quite play maybe the same way that like the earlier in career folks can that are younger. It comes more natively to them. And then maybe someone like you who is like, I'm at a point where I don't have to care as hard like that. But have you found that to be something that bridges, creates opportunities for you to get across to people that are colleagues or customers or kind of our industry and of the people that are making decisions? Or is that purely for trying to attract and engage kind of the younger generation that is more likely to be on TikTok?
I think it's trying to help me stay relevant. I talk about that a lot. It's like, you've got to be aware of what the other generations are doing. And, I mean, these are people that are now in our industry. They're doing purchasing. These are the engineers. You have to be able to speak to them where they are. And really, there's no better place to find out where they are than TikTok. I mean, you get a real cornucopia of information from that. But I think that it keeps me young. It definitely helps when somebody is communicating with the Gen Z's or something, and they'll throw in some slang and I can throw it back and they're like, wow. But we TikTok was really accidental. It was kind of a joke. We were spending a ton of money doing these really nice marketing, and some of them were really clever and witty. And our flamethrower video and our robot emporium video, I mean, they were great, but they were sitting out on YouTube and they were just like crickets, right?
Yeah.
And the social media company that we had employed at that time was like, well, what you really need is a TikTok account. And of course, Lauren, being my millennial, was like, not it, right? Yeah. Not it at all. And so I looked around and there was really nobody else in the company that was willing to step up and do it. And so, being the typical Gen X that I am the oldest Gen X. I was just like, sure, I'll do it. So, I found myself a 12-year-old, taught me how to basically make a TikTok, and off I went, right? And I just had fun with it, and I still have fun with it. And it's never about really content, nothing. It's just more about, it's a fun way to connect. It's a fun way to get your name out there. We did see like 300% increase in web traffic right after I started the TikTok. And I'm not like wildly popular TikTok like some of these guys. I certainly can't retire and monetize my TikTok, but I've got like 1,500 followers or something. And for automation videos, I think that's pretty good, because I mean, it takes a certain person to want to watch robots or conveyors do something. It's not the most exciting content out there, but I have a lot of followers that really enjoy that kind of content and enjoy my sense of humor and enjoy my musical tastes and things like that. So I'm just having fun with it, and it has really, I think, helped shine a light on FlexLine as a company, because people feel like they know me, right? And through social media, I think what is so important about social media in today's market is, having that sense of familiarity and feeling like you have a relationship and you build trust with somebody before you actually do business, I think is really important. And I mean, you girls have known me for a number of years. You've met me in person. You've seen me online. Is there a difference?
Nope.
What you see is what you get right here, And I think people have appreciated that. Yeah. And, even when I do corny or stupid stuff, or I share things on LinkedIn that Lauren will be like, Mom, that's really not LinkedIn appropriate. And I'm like, well, I'm here to break the rules. It must be LinkedIn appropriate if I post it, by golly. And, if you don't like it, scroll on by. I mean, I yell that to her in her office all the time. If you don't like it, scroll on, girl, scroll on. So,
Right? There's a lot of content out there, and people don't need to engage with all of it. But that's very cool that you have 1,500 people engaging on TikTok or watching automation videos. I know I would be one of them if I was on TikTok. Do you have any tips for those of us that are not and that have been hesitant to go on there? Because I don't need another possible reason to scroll my phone too much. And the one time I was on TikTok, I watched cleaning videos and people restocking their
Oh,
fridge.
those carpet cleaning videos
I have
are
watched
the
these
best,
stalking
right?
videos.
Or there's a guy out there that trims cow hooves, and I'm like, this is fascinating, and I will watch this for hours, and I'm thinking,
Is
what
that the guy that finds like the problems in
abscesses
the
in
hoof and
those?
excavates them?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
watched
yeah.
that guy too. I don't know why I keep
He's
watching
like
that.
a farrier for cattle, and so I will say you got to be really careful and really disciplined. But mainly, I have used TikTok as kind of a springboard to other social media. So a lot of the things that I'll create on TikTok, I will share to Facebook, or I'll share to Instagram or to LinkedIn or whatever, because I feel like you have to have a pretty diverse social media presence, because not everybody's on TikTok, not everybody is doing Facebook, not everybody. So you have to throw a little bit of content out there everywhere and kind of keep up with it that way. And if I were doing social media right, I'd probably be on it all day. But as it stands, I'll go on, I'll make a video, I might watch a few for research, reasons. When I get yelled at for scrolling too much on my phone, I'll be like, well, I'm just working, sorry. But I think it's important, because I think that's how these generations find out about things. I mean, I was really surprised at the percentage of Gen Z that make their purchasing decisions based off social media. It's completely different. People buy differently now than they did back when I was working in sales, 30 years ago. It's a completely different animal. And if you're still trying to use the same techniques that you used 20, 30 years ago, you're doing it wrong, because people are changing, and you have to change the way that you engage with them. And to me, social media kind of keeps me aware of that.
Yeah. I feel like social media can serve the purpose of like kind of getting to know somebody as an entity, as a person, before you engage with them on something complex like an engineering project, right? You want to know that they're trustworthy, that they have
Right.
a team that can perform. You feel like you know enough about them that they, if they're doing bad work, that reputation would,
Yeah,
kind
it
of
helps
follow
to
them,
build credibility.
right? But for purchasing on TikTok is something I think of more as like a consumer experience. Like, hey, I saw something, I'm interested in it, somebody recommended it, I'm just going to go ahead and click and buy that without talking to a person.
User generated content.
Yeah, but you guys do custom integration, but you also have these standard products like the Box EZ. Does that ever just get like somebody saw it online and looked up the specs and figured out they want it and they just call in them or go online and want to buy it? Or is that always a very heavily engineered, sort of led conversation?
Well, the box EZ is always kind of heavily engineered, because it really depends on box sizes and the location of the box magazine. That's going to determine the reach of the robot and the size of the robot. So, because we try to do multiple box sizes from a single pick point. So you don't have to change over end of arm tooling, anything like that, or make a lot of program changes. We like it to be very simple.
Yeah.
And so it's always pretty much an engineered product, but we stock a huge inventory of FlexLink conveyors here, conveyor parts, Dorner parts, Bosch Rexroth, things like that. So we do a tremendous amount of parts business.
Okay.
Repair parts, spare parts.
Yeah.
And people will see those and will call, because like, hey, I know you handle this particular product. And so not everything is a system. We do a lot of parts or engineered parts sales along with system sales or systems integration. So that's definitely something that, again, it's not a, oh my gosh, I just saw this really cool lip liner that never wipes off or something like that I might impulse buy, right? I have impulse purchased some things off my Facebook feed that I seriously regret, right? So I try to resist that, because not everything they say is true. I have found that out. Not all of these sales pitches are factual.
Yeah.
But yeah, mainly we're using social media to funnel people to our website or to make the phone call to call in and speak to us. We're not really doing the direct, buy online kind of thing.
Also very much speaks to, we don't really have the opportunity to manufacture demand for anything.
Right.
If people don't need a conveyor part, we're not going to be able to convince them to buy it with a video and some unsubstantiated product claims.
Yeah. So it's different, it's a different type of marketing. And so for us in the automation business, is TikTok ever going to be, exactly what you're saying? No, probably no. But do people see some of the stuff that I throw out there and are curious, and maybe they see an application that we've done, and then all of a sudden they're working on a project and they're like, oh my God, I saw somebody that did that. Yep. Oh yeah, it's the Conveyor Cougar. I'll go look that up, or I'll go back and see, and I'll give them a call. And so it's really trying to just to get that content out there and available. People might not use what they see today, but you plant that seed, and maybe next year, or they move jobs and they're in a different position and they run across something and they're like, okay, I need this, and I know somebody who really knows a lot about this, or who has a lot of resources in this area. And I think it's an informational tool for us.
Yeah, and it's easy enough to remember. Honestly, I'll say, so FlexLine Automation is the name of your company.
Yes.
FlexLink Conveyors is one of the brands that you represent, right? And early on, when I didn't deal with those two, I mixed the two up a lot. And so there's a lot of names and technologies and things in our industry that are very similar. I found this out, also working nationally, there's just a lot of regional companies that sound exactly the same, or they're off by one letter or something. Whereas your identity and your personality, and you're the Conveyor Cougar, that, you don't mix that up with anything else. Anybody else.
Well, one of the things that I always try to point out about, a lot of people will be like, well, you sell FlexLink conveyors. Why shouldn't I just go directly to FlexLink? I'll get a better price. I'll get a whatever. And, if you're ordering something standard off the shelf, yeah, maybe. But if you're looking at an integration project, and maybe a standard product needs to be customized for you, you're not going to get that at the manufacturer level. So I think that there's always going to be a reason to have a partnership with a good integrator, because, we'll take some of these FlexLink items and we've turned them into magnetic conveyors or air conveyors or backlit conveyors and things that are not standard. You're not going to get that if you call FlexLink, because what we're looking at is solving your problem.
Yeah.
And if we can do it with a standard product offering, of course, that's economical, the best way to go, but that's not always possible. So the fact that we have the ability to customize the solution, I think, gives us an advantage.
Yeah, I'll also say, just coming from the manufacturer's side of things, I work for Wintech, we're a manufacturer. I've worked for Festo and Keyence in the past, which are also the manufacturers. We're not always faster at shipping. Sometimes we're slower. Wintech, in this case, we have a good warehouse, we ship next day, but I've bought from many manufacturers that will take up to a week to ship out an order, because they're used to handling large quantity orders from their distributors and bigger companies. Yeah. And so you're not necessarily likely to get a faster response or better service. B, you're not necessarily likely to get a better price either. In some cases, it'll be worse than you can get from a good distributor or integrator. And I think that's kind of a perception that, I don't know, I think it probably depends on the manufacturer and the distributor. Each one, there's pros and cons there. But that would be an interesting, I think I should do an episode on that topic, just because having worked across the aisles of these different relationships, distributors, systems integrators, manufacturers, there's a lot of, sort of nuance there that maybe not everybody knows. And some of those things seem very counterintuitive unless you know kind of the reasoning or the reasoning behind them, and then different scenarios in which you want to make sure that you have all those relationships in place.
Well, I have $750,000 worth of conveyor parts sitting on my shelf back there, so that if somebody calls FlexLine Automation, the first difference you're going to notice is a human is going to answer your phone. call.
Yeah.
You're going to actually speak with a person who is going to be able to get you to who you need, what you need. And I mean, there have been instances when we're not here, our phones ring to my cell phone, my husband's cell phone, or Lauren's cell phone. So it's like we're always on call. I've come in on Saturday before and packed up parts for a courier to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was a private pilot for quite a while.
No way! I did
Yeah.
not know this.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we have known you for years, but I've just learned something completely new.
My husband and I both used to fly. His dad was a helicopter flight instructor, and so aviation was really big in his family, and so I kind of got sucked into that, and we both flew quite a bit. And at that time, hey, I would throw a box, into the plane and fly it out, different places. So that level of customer service you don't get from a big company, from a manufacturer, because it's kind of like that layer cake we talked about. There's lots of layers, there's lots of icing, there's lots of fluff in between those layers. And, when you call FlexLine, you're going to get a person, you're going to get a decision maker, somebody that's going to be able to act on your request immediately. And, I keep enough conveyor that I can build 100 foot of conveyor and turn it around in 24 hours if I need to. And we have, we've gotten orders before, and they're like, I need this, and I need this in 2 days. Can you do it? Sure. So I think that would be a great episode, because there is a big misnomer that, going direct is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're running, pretty close to time here. We should probably start wrapping things up. I could go on forever on tangents and other things that I thought of that I want to ask you. Cathy, is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't asked?
I don't know. I mentioned that we're working on a gluing application for the Box Easy, so kind of keep an eye out. That's going to be coming soon. And
do you think we'll see that at Pack Expo?
I don't know if we'll be taking it to a trade show yet this year, or definitely won't be ready for Automate, but we will be at Automate. We are going to be hosting our own automation fair again. We're looking at doing that maybe sometime in late April, early May. We haven't set the date exactly for that, but that's always a really wildly popular event.
Yeah, I actually wanted to mention that, because that is something that, in your area, right, of rural Southern Illinois, there's not a lot of opportunities to go to these trade shows.
No.
Unless you really have, a big reason to travel and the expense and stuff. So is that something that you guys put on for the community to see what automation is? Or is it more of just like a, hey, come see what we have to sell? Like, what's the motivation behind
the motivation?
How long have you been doing it?
Lauren and I, this will be our third or fourth year, I don't know. But Lauren and I were leaving Automate one year, and I was walking behind these two gentlemen, and they were like, oh my God, did you see this? And I didn't even know they made those. And it just kind of resonated with me. People, you can't Google what you don't know.
Yeah, right.
Right. And a lot of the businesses, a lot of the small to mid-sized rural manufacturers, they don't have the budgets to send people to Vegas or send people to Chicago or wherever. And so these guys are basically relying on catalogs and the internet. And it just really struck me. How do you Google what you don't know? How would you even begin? If you can't go to a trade show and see some of the things that are there, how do you even know where to begin to look? And so that was why we started having our own automation fair, because there are so many small, mid-sized rural manufacturers in this area that just don't have access to that information. So it's our goal always to put on a show with a very diverse group of exhibitors. It's really weird. It's in our facility. I don't have a booth in it. We really aren't even promoting our products. It's my way of trying to bring the trade show to people that don't have an opportunity to go, that I feel like need to have that experience, and they need to be able to, to touch and feel and look at some of these things that are available, and then begin to get an idea of what to Google, when they need to, or at least have some contacts and some resources available, so they can call, or they can be like, hey, we're doing this. Maybe it's not something I know anything about. Somebody at a trade show asked me, can you do this? And I was like, well, that's not the right question, because yeah, I can. The question is, should I? And that's no, but here's the number for the guys who should.
Yeah.
And so, we're matchmakers a lot in that area, but it's something I'm really passionate about, because I think that these small, mid-sized rural manufacturers are underserved and overlooked. And a lot of the bigger companies, they don't want to spend their resources, because you're driving an hour, 2 hours or more in between companies. So these guys don't get any sales calls. They don't get anything, and yet if you look at our GDP, if you look at what's most of manufacturing, they're small, mid-sized rural manufacturers. So if there's anybody that we should be supporting right now, especially, it's those guys, so that's something that's super important to Lauren and I, and the reason why we do it, and why we invite anybody who wants to come set up as an exhibitor is welcome. We don't charge an exhibitor fee. You can make a donation if you'd like to help pay, because we buy everybody who comes lunch. We have a food truck on site. So, do you want to write us a check to help offset the cost of food? Fantastic. But it's not a requirement, because what we want to do is bring that technology to these companies that wouldn't otherwise have access to it.
Yeah. Well, that I think is a fantastic way to end this interview, with 4 minutes to spare. So what I would love to do is make sure that when you guys have the information finalized, the dates, the registration page, whatever that is, that we get you up on our Automation Ladies events calendar.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
So that is something that we're putting together this year. Both events that we are going to be at, and just events that we think people should know about. And I would now like to try to make an effort to get more smaller regional events onto that page, and there to be some sort of finder but based on location, so that
that'd be awesome.
For me now, as a single parent with 2 kids, I love going to these events and flying out and everything. Luckily, it is something I get to do as part of my job, but it's also it's a real challenge with scheduling and other things. And so whenever there's something I realize I can drive to and don't have to spend the night, for instance, that's always like a real nice treat for me, something that I can do without spending the night away from my kids. And so I can imagine there's plenty of other people out there with, whether it's an employer restraint that they don't have the budget, or maybe it's just, even if you could go on your employer's dime, you have caretaking responsibilities, or whatever that is that keeps you from traveling too far. And so if we can bring these little mini events to more people's attention, you can go find something locally.
We invited people from about a 250 mile radius, and I had one company that sent 11 engineers, and they thanked me personally before they left, because they were like, this is the only opportunity we have. And then we had another company that I overheard 2 gentlemen talking, and one of them was like, and they had drove probably an hour, hour and a half. And he was like, I thought this was going to be so lame, and I figured this probably wasn't even going to be worth the drive. There's so much cool stuff here. And that's the feedback that I want. I want there to be so much cool stuff that these people that don't have an opportunity to see it are just floored. And already I've got people reaching out saying, when is the next one? When is the next one? We want to come. So I think it's super important to promote those small events for all the reasons you mentioned, because it's important that we support that section of manufacturing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So where should people go? To anything we haven't mentioned yet in terms of how should people reach out to you if they want to do business with FlexLine, or if they want to take part in the event, or anything else that you want people to know that they should contact you or your company about?
Well, our website is always a great place to start, and it's FlexLineAutomation.com, and FlexLine is hyphenated. Or you can always call in. The number is 618-826-5086. There's always going to be a human that answers your call. You're going to get to speak to somebody that will be able to address your needs right away. email, follow me on LinkedIn. Just look up Conveyor Cougar. I think I come up that way. Follow me on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Reddit. I'm on, you name it, X, Threads, Facebook.
Okay, social media.
You can find me anywhere.
Yeah. And everybody should know now, what type of person you are, how to approach you, what not to call you about, right?
Just, hey, if you've got a question, let me know. I've been doing this a long time. I might not know everything, but I know how to use resources. And I think that's the important thing. I might not know it, but I know a guy who does, right? Yeah. So, definitely.
And then Lauren Vandemark, your daughter, is the sales and marketing manager. Is that correct?
She is.
So you guys can also find her on LinkedIn, touch base with her if you're looking for project support. So thank you so much, Cathy. I am so glad to have you back on the show. I really look forward to it. I think I told you this. I thought about it last year. I was like, man, I just want to fly out, go to Cathy's farm. But then I thought about the drive, and then I was like, I'm not sure which airport, and then that sounds complicated, and I probably shouldn't show up on your doorstep. So
fly into St. Louis, and you have an open invitation.
I will make it out there one day. And in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Those of you in the audience, man, if you just want, there's like no scenario in which you shouldn't connect with Cathy, really. I think if you're in the industry, that's good. And you're going to find that it will be an enrichment to your feed, to your career, to your relationships, to learn from her and what she's doing out there and FlexLine in general. We'll see you guys at Automate. We'll see you guys at Pack Expo. And have a great rest of your Tuesday. Bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Automation Ladies. If you like our content and you want to stay in touch, please connect with us on LinkedIn, follow the show page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can send us a message or a coffee on our website, automationladies.io. We look forward to getting to know you. Our producer is Veronica Espinoza, and our music is composed by Samuel James.